In the history of faith, there are these moments that are so profound, so mysterious, that they just echo through the centuries. Today, we're going to gently explore one of those moments from the book of Acts, the strange and really powerful story of the Apostle Peter's healing shadow. Just think about that for a second. These words, they capture this incredible scene of just raw hope and belief. But what did it really mean? What could possibly lead people to believe that a simple shadow held the power to heal? That's the mystery we're going to unravel together. Okay, so let's dive in. To begin, we really need to get a feel for where and when this was all happening. To grasp the power of this event, we have to try and feel the atmosphere on the ground in first-century Jerusalem.
This wasn't some quiet, back-alley meeting. Solomon's Portico was this huge, public space right at the very heart of the city's religious life. It was a place with tons of foot traffic, constant debate, and intense scrutiny. This is where the early church made its bold, public stand. Just try to imagine walking through those streets. The air would have been thick with this mix of complete desperation and also a new, profound kind of hope. People were traveling from all the surrounding towns, carrying their loved ones, all of them just searching for a miracle. And this is what brilliantly illustrates the sheer scope of what was happening. The specific Greek words used in the text tell us that people from every single walk of life were there. You had the wealthy arriving on their soft, comfortable beds, and the poor on simple, coarse pallets. Sickness and the hope for healing had completely erased any social divisions. And that brings us right to the core of the story. Why the focus on a shadow? I mean, to us, it's just an absence of light. But to understand this, we need to explore what people in the ancient world believed about something we see as so ordinary. This is such a fascinating cultural insight. For the people of that time, a shadow was deeply, intrinsically tied to a person's essence, their very soul. So to have someone's shadow pass over you wasn't just a fleeting, meaningless event. It was seen as a form of direct contact, a real transmission of their spirit or their power.
And this is the crucial point. This wasn't about superstition or a belief in some kind of magic. They saw Peter as a channel for a divine power, a concept the Greeks called dynamis. They believed that this power was so potent, so present in him, that it literally radiated outwards, charging even his shadow with its healing potential.
So that brings us to our next point, which is all about how this event fits into a bigger theme we see elsewhere. This idea of healing through just being close to something holy, well, it isn't unique to this one story. When you put these events side by side, a really clear pattern starts to emerge, doesn't it? Whether it was the hem of a garment, a piece of cloth, or a shadow, the underlying belief was the same. Profound healing could happen simply by getting close to a person who was filled with God's power.
And this right here is the key that unlocks the whole event. The focus isn't on the physical object itself. The true miracle seems to be a combination of three things: the divine power coming from God, the apostles who acted as channels for that power, and the powerful, unwavering faith of the people who were seeking it out.
Now, that collective faith, it wasn't just happening in a vacuum. To really understand why these miracles were occurring with such frequency, we need to zoom out a bit and look at the unique spiritual environment that the early believers had created for themselves.
The early church is described with this incredible Greek word, Homothumadon. It means they weren't just physically in the same place, they were united in their spirit, in their passion, in their purpose. It's described as them having one heart and one soul, all moving together in the same direction. So these three things created this sort of perfect storm for the miraculous. First, a deep reverence for God. Then, this passionate unity. And together, they cultivated what you could call an atmosphere of faith. It was an environment so spiritually charged that divine power could flow from Peter as an unconscious influence, healing people as he simply walked by. So what does this incredible 2,000-year-old story mean for us? Well, it continues to cast a long shadow, influencing our traditions and challenging us to think about our own impact on the world. This deep desire for proximity to the divine didn't end in the first century. It actually evolved into the practice of venerating relics, this idea that objects or remains of holy people can serve as a point of connection to God. It really speaks to that deep, human longing to connect with the sacred in a tangible way.
You know, modern theologians see this story as more than just history. They see it as a kind of blueprint. It's often interpreted as a challenge for communities of faith today.
a challenge to be a source of courage, of outreach, of healing, and of spiritual freedom for the world around them. And this brings us to a beautiful and powerful metaphor. A shadow, by itself, has no power. Its existence, its clarity, its strength, it's all determined by the light source behind the object. And that thought gently shifts our focus away from the person casting the shadow and onto the divine light that makes it all possible.
And so, this ancient account of hope and healing in the streets of Jerusalem leaves us with this quiet but profound question. It invites us to reflect on our own lives, on the influence we have, consciously or not, on the people we pass by every single day. What kind of shadow are you casting?